Hey guys, Dan here,
And Frank at Zilla Island.
and we have a special guest with us today. We've interviewed him a bunch of times. I think this is like the fifth or fourth interview that we've done. Blake McCarthy, author of the indie comic series Territory, wrapped up its Kickstarter for the final issue last year, and now it's out. So anyone who backed it can read it digitally. And yeah, no, yeah, I guess that's it. I read it. I think it was like later in the day because I was working. But like I did get to read it at work, like the day it came out.
Yeah, me too. I snuck it in
Very,
there.
very pleased with it. It's really a great issue. Kicks off immediately after issue four, so it's uh, there's no time gap. Big, he kind of just jumps straight into the action, and it kind of sets up the arc for the issue. And I gotta say, like, while the ending wasn't exactly what I was expecting, I did not like Falric from the beginning though. And I was like, I knew he's gonna pull some crap like that.
Yeah, yeah. I love the ending actually. But yeah, it really does. It does pick up right where issue four left off. And today, actually, while we're recording this, you sent out the artist edition and the script edition, which I took a quick glance at the script and I looked through the artist edition as well. It was really cool seeing that whole progression of the art, like how it goes from rough to and like all the layers, and it's going black and white, and then adding the color, and it was really cool. That was a really cool addition to see. And the script is like I never like in my head. I'm like, how do you write a comic? And like seeing the script, I read a couple of pages of it. I'm like, this is really cool. I'm like, I never would have guessed this is how you laid it out. Like in my head, I'm like, if I were to make a comic, I'm like, I would want to see the pictures and put the words to it.
Definitely. Well, I mean, one, thank you guys for having me on again. Yeah, it's been fun talking to you guys really since this series started. And so now that we're at the end, it's really exciting to kind of hear what you guys think and to look back on everything. But I'm glad you got to look through the artist edition. That was definitely something that I was excited to send out. I again, with all my Kickstarters, I want to do something that, I would like to see from a Kickstarter. And I've always enjoyed, like you said, seeing the behind the scenes of the comics, kind of how it gets made. Especially as a newer creator, I've looked at a lot of that stuff to see how people who I really like their work, to see how they got there, see the work that's put in behind it, and so just to be able to kind of give people a look into how we got where we were, and how it got made, and basically from script all the way through, you pretty much see every stage that we put together that way. So you really get to see how it develops, and I think that's really cool. And I'm glad you guys like the ending. This was this was pretty much the ending I had in mind from the start. When we came up for the idea from the story, I knew that it was going to be pretty similar to this. There were a couple little tweaks along the way, but this was especially sort of those last couple pages were basically what I had in mind. And so it was really cool to see, to get to end it the way we wanted to and the way we felt was appropriate. And yeah, and now it's just hearing what other people think about it, and hopefully it's as satisfying for them as it was for us.
Yeah, it was really cool. Like, so we'll give a little backstory and a little brief summary of what happened in it. So last issue, Nebo had to do a trial by combat thing, and he almost won until Model stepped in and just ate both of them, and then it was just complete chaos. And this comic opens up right after that chaos. Model just ripping people apart. Everyone's running. Uh, Chief Host has got his God Slayer. It's basically like this crazy looking rocket launcher. And he's like, these are my people, and he shoots at it. And Monolishi kind of backs off, and they all kind of get back to the camp and everything. And they're like, one of the tribe members, who was it? I can't think of it. Quelo. He's one of the tribe members from the newer Monolishi tribe. He wants to kind of like, yeah, let's throw him in as sacrifices to Monolishi. And this woman steps forward, Manisa. Manisa?
I had Manisa in my head, but yeah.
Okay, yeah, Manisa. Yeah, and she's like, no, we could actually like use their help. Like instead of just making them prisoners, like why don't they help us with the things that we need to do day to day instead of just killing them because they're from another tribe? And then the chief's like, you know what? That's actually a good idea, but since this is your idea, you're going to be in charge of watching one. And she picks Alkia. And so Alkia is a little hesitant at first. They have a daughter, Violen. Violen?
Realney, I think.
Realney. And her husband was Tremos.
Mm-hmm.
So she kind of see like they're going through this journey together, and Trilin is like really trying to like learn about Alkia, and Alkia is kind of like standoffish. She's like, "Get away from me! You're a naive kid. Leave me alone." And then Quelo kind of confronts Alkia again while she like bumps into him, and then Trilin steps in and is like, "No, leave her alone." And so I think that's where Alkia kind of gains some respect for this kid, and she starts teaching her how to hunt and telling her about her life, and they all both kind of talk about their lives and their experience with the gods, and the fear that they've had through their whole life. And then one night, this is like right towards the end. I'm kind of summarizing here. Alkia goes to steal the God Slayer, and she's gonna go kill Madalishki, and then something in her makes her stop, and she turns around, and that's when Kralin shows up, one of the elders of her tribe, and he's wounded, and she finds out they're sacrificing the tribe members, and she says, and he tells her Falric has done this in the past, and he was part of the, what is that, the Aquamasses,
Mm-hmm.
like the big frog guy?
Yeah.
He was part of their tribe, and it was sort of hinted at during that issue when we saw the Great Horn fight all those guys, and a little flashback that something quite didn't quite go right with that whole battle. And he reveals that Falric basically made him convert, and like he was just a kid at the time, and they just slaughtered his tribe. And he's like, Falric's doing it again. Now he's pretending to be with these Madalishki guys. And sure enough, Akia shows up there, and she sees Falric running it, and Trilin steps in and says to stop these sacrifices, and Falric's like, no, she's corrupted, we gotta sacrifice her, and Hos is about to behead her, and Akia steps in and says stop, and then she blasts him with the God Killer, killing the leader of this jacked tribe that was overpowering her tribe. And now, kind of like, usually, if you think tribal, you kill their leader, like, you sort of become the one in charge. And then she says, listen, this time of worship is over. It is now a time of healing. We're going to unite, join together, and we're going to take back this planet. And it kind of ends with, like, kind of a hope for a new start. And it feels like Alkia and the tribes are going to try to reach out and find survivors out there and trying to bring back Earth and no longer worship the monsters.
Yeah.
And I think that's pretty much summarized the whole story
Yeah.
pretty well,
Yeah,
right?
I think that was a great summary. And one thing that was definitely interesting about this issue was this was our biggest issue. All the first four issues were all 22 pages, and then this one was 32. So it was, basically an extra half a comic. And so, but despite that, we had a lot that we wanted to get done with this issue. When I first wrote this out, I wasn't sure if Territory was going to be 5 or 6 issues. And kind of looking at it, I didn't feel like there was enough for an entirely separate fifth issue, like an entirely separate 6 issue. So just kind of combine some of the ideas from that I was playing around looking at both those issues, but didn't want to leave anything out. So we did do the 32 pages. But that being said, still felt like we had a lot to include. So like you guys pointed out, we jumped right in on this one right after the end of the fourth one. I really feel like after the third issue, like is kind of when everything starts to ramp up, and 3, 4, 5 especially are pretty breakneck pace. The first 2 issues are kind of, you get a lot of the background, a lot of the world, and then once the Model-Ishki and the Great Horn fight, everything just sort of dials up from that point on. And that's the core idea of the story is that not only are there these cool kaiju, but how the people worship them, and how different people's worship of the different kaiju is reflective of their sort of cultures and beliefs. And so when the two kaiju clash, you see, that brings these two cultures, these two belief systems into clash, and that kind of sets the stage for the rest of it. And then Alkia's journey. And what I thought was kind of cool was for the first, especially 3 or 4 issues, you really see things from Alkia's perspective as far as like the Great Horn tribe is sort of, the what it is. It's all you really
Yeah.
see or know or understand. And then when this new tribe comes in, it's very shocking, and she's got to adjust to that. And so she, this shows her growth of sort of being, sort of insulated for most of the time she's raised in this tribe and in this one belief system. And then she has this dramatic event happen when the Great Horn is slain, and it challenges her beliefs. And then she meets other people who have a different belief system than her, and it takes some time to adjust. At first, like you said, she is very resistive, and really kind of blames this tribe for what's happened to her, even though they're partially responsible, but it's also just her belief in the Great Horn had failed her, and she was looking for someone to blame, and this tribe was sort of what she looked to blame. But as she travels with this new family, and she travels with Rilni, and she travels with Manissa, and they, she learns about them. She sees that their dynamics are similar to the dynamics of her and her parents, and that these people really aren't different than her. They just have a different kind of belief. And so she once she kind of finds that common ground, it starts to change things for her. And then the other thing is, then at the end when she talks to Kraylin and learns that Falric has already sort of massacred one tribe, and conscripted Kraylin into service basically, and Kraylin's had to bear this burden. And then now he's using this new tribe's belief to again sort of put himself in a position of power, keep himself out of danger at the cost of others. That kind of shows her that the belief system wasn't really based around the kaiju. It was it was a way of manipulating people. It was a way of manipulating power. And so she makes the decision that she wants to end all of that sort of thing. They're not going to just go off of who worships who and make decisions based off that. They're going to work to heal together, and that they'll be stronger together. And regardless of the kaiju that are out there, again, which really the kaiju, rarely interact directly with them. They just, especially the tribe leaders use the kaiju to further their own agendas. And she's kind of finally realizing that and coming around to the fact that, this is something that this isn't a time of worship. We need to work together. We need to come together if we're going to survive. And so, you kind of see that all come together at the end, and her character arc is kind of finally finished, where she started as this very zealous but naive individual, and now she's seen enough to know that she can't just listen to these people, and she can't just go along with what others are saying. She needs to establish her own beliefs and help others reach that as well.
Yeah, I that was definitely one of the themes that in this last book I really did like, was the hey, on the surface our two tribes are very, very different, but when you really get to know people, we all kind of have the same values, and it's like leaders that are dividing.
Yes.
And all that stuff. I thought that was a really really great message, and something that's super relevant.
Yeah.
It's I thought it was a really nice message to give out to people. And then I thought it was important, the whole series, the people have placed so much worth into these kaiju, and they don't the kaiju are just animals living life.
Yeah, they're just
they
nature.
don't really care about the
Yeah.
people to begin with. So it was a great hey, everyone's putting all of their value into these beings that couldn't care less about that.
And then even at the beginning of the series, they were almost things of legend. That was the first time, the first issue was the first time Nebo and Alki have ever seen the Great Horn, and they had never, a lot of people in the tribe have never actually seen him. So although this world is ravaged by them, they're not they are a massive presence, but they're not really a presence that's constantly there. It is constantly there in their lives because they turned it into their faith, but physically they're not always there. They're not there often at all.
Absolutely, yeah. They're not a day to day presence, and exactly what you guys are talking about. And it's kind of, there's a term blind faith for a reason, right? Like people
Yeah,
want to believe something so badly, or they've just been sort of taught to believe something. And one of the big themes is, one thing that I really wanted to address is, one thing that bothers me is when people are told to not question something, to not critically think about something, just follow and believe because it's the way it is, because this is how it's always been, because this is what we believe. You just need to hop on board. Don't ask
yeah,
questions, just follow. Because once you start to ask questions, once you start to look around, a lot of that tends to fall apart. And that's kind of, what happened here. So it's, and like you said, the kaiju aren't impacting, they impact them as far as, when they're there, they're just so powerful that you have to basically get out of the way or else you'll be crushed. But they're not affecting their day to day. What's affecting their day to day is these leaders are projecting their values or their agendas onto the kaiju and using that kaiju as a vessel, because they see that the people respect the kaiju, they see that the people worship the kaiju, and so they can manipulate that for their own agendas. And and at first Alkia is being mentored by Falric, and he's not doing anything that we're explicitly like, oh, that's bad, but he's just, you can tell he's kind of planting seeds, he's manipulating, he's guiding her into doing, not her and the rest of the tribe, into doing things that fit what he wants. And then,
yeah,
and Hassa has a different approach, but it's also very similar. And his is a little bit more direct, his is a little bit more confrontational, but he's still using, sort of the respect from this other being and using that to kind of project his own will and drive his people to do that. And then one thing I wanted to show was, they're those two that supposedly should be very opposed to each other if they truly believed in what they claim to. Once they get together, they work together, they talk, they're both realize that this is someone that, hey, we can work together to even further our agendas to make it, and so you have all these people who, like you said, most of the people in these tribes would get along well. Most people
yeah,
are going to look out for each other, are going to take care of each other. Most people are good people. But when you have these leaders that can take something, especially something as powerful as faith, that people will sort of follow blindly, or are willing to um, overlook something to follow it because it matches their belief system, it becomes a very powerful tool, and you can use that tool, for the wrong ways. And that was really something I wanted to kind of address and show. And the kaiju just make such a great uh, visual representation of that. Here they are, they're these big, amazing, powerful things, but like you said, they're really not, they really don't affect a whole lot in the story, except what the leaders sort of drive the tribe to, and make them affect.
yeah, yeah. No, absolutely. And like you said, Falric and Hassa, they're basically, at the end of the day, they're the same person. They both have the same
Mm-hmm.
goals. So, and Falric knew what he did in the past. So he's like, listen, I'm old. He's like, I'm weak. He's like, I was this guy. He's like, now I'm just gonna have to do what I made the other people do to me with him. So I'm just gonna bend and pretend I'm with him and just to survive. And that's one of the things I took away from this issue is that you know the these leaders of these tribes or leaders in general when in these faiths, they're using their differences to divide their people, and they're like, oh, this is my power, I have this tribe, you have your tribe. um but in reality, like Alkia discovers at the end, that these worships, this worship, this faith that they've had this whole time, has really just been something that was fed to them, and they never, like you said, they never questioned. And she's come to realization. I mean, basically, what we see throughout this whole series is Alkia loses her family, her friends, her faith, and then in this final issue, she gets a new family, she gets new friends, and she has new beliefs. And she's a completely different person by the end of the series, and it's pretty cool how her journey went. And like the interesting thing with this tribe too, with Haas's tribe, is like when we saw them in the last issue, like We thought they were all these massive people. And then we saw Menissa's family, and we're like, oh, they're kind of normal people. They don't look like these hulking monsters. Like, I didn't know there was regular people in that tribe.
Definitely. And and I think part of that too is also like with the artist change, I think you notice the you know Donnie's characters are sort of more almost kind of cartoonish in their proportions, where they do look like these big, strong, kind of superhero type physiques. But it, like I said, it actually worked out kind of perfect that he came in when he did, because that really set these guys apart. As, oh, this is a new tribe. These guys are totally different. But like you said, that was only a part of the tribe. They have these warriors. They use them, but again, that's not representative of this whole group. That's a group, that's a small portion of the tribe, again, that's led by Hassa, that follows his commands. And so he uses them as another tool. So he uses sort of the faith to control some of the tribe. He uses the warriors to control some of the tribe. So again, he's not necessarily, you know, he is just using whatever is available to him to further his own goals. And so when you see these, the family that Alkia ends up with, you get that reminder that, because a lot of times, and we see it, like you guys said, especially today, we see it all the time, the way media and people are portrayed, especially if they are, different faiths, different cultures, different whatever, and especially if, oh, well, these guys are our enemy now for whatever reason, they're portrayed, and you get this sort of image of like, oh, they all must be this. Well, really, most of them are probably, again, like me and you. And they probably have leaders who are, again, they're working for their agenda, and they'll have those people too. But it's a good reminder that the bulk of any sort of group is going to be pretty similar. Like the bulk is going to be people just trying to survive, trying to take care of their families, take care of themselves, just live a decent life. But they're susceptible to the whims of these leaders and of the people who sort of make these decisions. And so, realizing that, and being, and like Alkia does, realizing that and saying, okay, I need to stop, holding this grudge against them, and stop looking at them as this particular way, or I need to reach out, and we need to work together, because if we're going to overcome, what's really ultimately going to negatively affect both of us, we're going to need to work together to kind of overthrow and to resist those negative, the negativity that is being pushed down on us, and we need to find a way to overcome that. But we're not going to be able to do it separately. We need to work together to do it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Did you have something then?
No, no, I was gonna say, um, you know, I, I know that like you said multiple times that like, territory, like this was kind of the story that you had in place, and it's kind of wrapped up. I would love to see what does their future look like? Like, do they like get to the point where society's like rebuilt now, and like they've gotten past this stuff, or like, I always like to think of like the oh what if, or something like that. It's just very, it's it's a great place for them to start rebuilding where they are right now.
Definitely. Well, and it was interesting because, yeah, I mean, when I came up with the idea, I liked that it had a definite ending, because it was like, okay, I can tell a whole story with the ending, and then everyone will, but especially now, having spent last 4 or 5 years really really getting in depth with these characters, learning about them, building this world, you do think about, okay, what would happen next in this world, what would these guys do next, especially Alkia, what would she do next, what's the next step in her journey. She's had this big character arc, and she's come to the end of it, where now, like you said, she's got a new family, she's got a new belief system, she's more confident in herself, and she's ready to sort of move forward. Well, what would she do next? And I think it's definitely something that I've thought about. I I don't have any like specific plans or ideas as far as what would happen next. And I think that's one appealing thing about an ending like this is what happens in your mind can happen. What happens in
Yeah.
in Frank's mind can happen. So everyone can kind of have their idea of what comes next, and I think there's power in that. But I'm also not totally ruling out, hey, if I have a really good idea of like, what, I think this would be a cool story to tell with Alkia. This could be the next step on her journey. Or another thing is, okay, this story has wrapped up. but there's this still whole big world out there, and we've sort of established a lot of the rules and the background for it. We can tell a different story of a different set of characters that are living in this world, and it could see, okay, how can we play in this sort of sandbox we've built to tell a new story if we got. And so I do have kind of some ideas there that over the past couple of years have come up of like, that would be cool. And I definitely, I could definitely see coming back to it at some point. I just don't have anything kind of firm yet. But that's one really
Yeah.
cool thing about feeling like we've created this world and established these characters now, is now I feel like if I want to, I can come back and sort of pick it up and say, okay, cool, this is what we've got. What can we do with it?
Yeah, it
Yeah.
really is a satisfying ending. Like, yes, there is that what happens next, but like it's also like, yeah, this is good. This is the
Yeah,
ending.
it's
It's
like
like
all the
it's
storylines
like
are
the
all wrapped up, and it's
happy
very
ending. Uh,
yeah.
Especially the final, like Falric getting eaten by the Madalishi for the final page. I'm like, perfect. That's like
Yeah.
that's like the perfect like post credit scene that you would see in a movie where everyone would be like, yeah,
Yes.
that's
And that's what I was going for. Well, and it's Falric was interesting. He was a really interesting character to write because, you don't want to make him this super villain bad guy where you're reading the first issue and you're like, this guy's evil. I hate him. I hope he dies. Like, because then it's just not as powerful when you get to this point. Like, if you kind of build him
yeah,
up as first, he's kind of this mentor, and like you said, you get an uneasy feeling about him from the start. You're like, this dude seems shady for sure. Like, but
yeah,
at the same time, he's kind of a mentor. He is trying to kind of help the tribe out. You see that Alkia really respects him, and that he's all the other tribe members and everything. So like, okay, maybe he's just kind of weird or whatever, but like he's helping. But then when you get that betrayal of when he is, one, I think, and it was really cool, and definitely something I learned about the power of being able to reference back with Kraylin's story, referencing back to issue 2 and sort of what we learned there, and having him be this character that was basically kind of a background character that you kind of learn about, and then when you open up, you're like, wow, he has a lot of story to tell that was he was just forced to hide all this time,
yeah,
and then and that really starts to kind of flip Falric into this very evil character. And then once you see what he's doing with the sacrifice, it's like, yeah, like screw this dude. Like
yeah,
so then but I think having 3 or 4 issues of sort of building up as a where he's not just this evil character, and then you see the betrayal happen and how crushing that is for Alkia, that
yeah,
really strengthens that when he does get eaten at the end, and it's like that's what we want to happen, right? We want to see the bad
yeah,
guy get the justice he deserves.
yeah,
And I definitely think it's interesting because I feel like there's kind of a trend of not doing that now. Like, people are almost a lot of people don't want to do the happy ending. It seems like you get kind of these, the bad guy doesn't necessarily win, but he doesn't lose kind of either, sort of
yeah,
thing, like a Game of Thrones where you're like, God, I can't wait for them to die, and then they just
yeah,
get wiped out, and you're
yeah,
like, why? But
Yeah.
it was definitely something where it's like, nope, like it'll feel good to end him, and to end him with the monsters that he used to manipulate others. That is, again, kind of brings everything full circle.
yeah, and the Hasa getting killed with a rocket launcher to the gut. I was like, damn.
Definitely. Well, and that's and again, because Alkia is, it was fun too, because she is strong throughout a lot of this. She's a strong character. She is independent. She is able to do a lot, but she's always been sort of kept under someone, like, throughout the whole course of the story. And then again, you have this older guy who is just used to bossing people around, thinks he can boss her around, starts telling her, you can't touch me, I'm the Fang of the Model Ishki. Like, at that point, he's basically equating himself to a god, which again is something that Falric had kind of done. And and then she just had enough, and that shows that she's not going to let these people dictate based off of what they see themselves as, and what they think, how you think you should react to them. She was basically just done with that, and able to. And it was interesting too, because Quelo was another character that he was hateable from the start. He's this big brute that
Yeah,
comes in and is just, he's mean to Alkia, he's mean to everyone, he's violent, he's cruel. And you're like, one thing that I even talked with the editor, she's like, it would be really satisfying to see him get killed. And I was like, I agree, but I almost think it's more powerful to see him kneeling to Alkia at the end. Of if you can have all of that
Yes.
cruelty and brute force, but when you see someone that is really uniting people, and you see that someone that can bring people together, that's more powerful than one person just trying to brute strength everything. And so having him kneel instead of getting killed or something as well, that to me felt a little bit more powerful.
Yeah, that was something that definitely stood out to me too when that all went down at the end. I was like, wow, she even got him, who's been treating her like garbage the whole time, to like yield to her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I always saw him as
Sorry.
like a bit of a like an upstart,
Mm-hmm.
like you can see like throughout this whole issue, like Haas is trying to like keep him like in check, like, hey, I'm the one who comes up with the ideas
Yeah,
here, and seeing him take the knee at the end, I was like, oh wow, like
definitely.
he didn't put up any
Well, and
issues.
I think too, like that's again, we see those kind of people that you can tell they're just waiting for their opportunity to sort of seize power, right? And he's obviously, we've seen through his other actions, he's willing to do whatever is necessary to get that. And so, he doesn't care who it impacts or how it impacts them. Like, he's all about himself. But again, and this is where it's always fun of like, well, it'd be cool to go into this more, because then you could kind of show about like why did he kneel and stuff.
Yeah,
But I think for when you have, again, one thing about comics is you do have you have limited space, and so you have to make each panel as impactful as
yeah,
possible.
it's
And so him kneeling, that's a very powerful, impactful image. And so you say a lot with that one panel, and you could go a lot more into it, but that at least gets a lot of those ideas across with just a simple image that people say, okay, he kneeled. At this point, she's shown that this unity is what's stronger than his sort of brute strength.
yeah, yeah, definitely.
And another cool thing that I thought was that when Kraylin was dying, that Alkia had kept that Aqua Massis like totem or like whatever symbol
Mm-hmm.
and gave it back to him, and he was like, I was like, oh, that's pretty cool that she kept that, and like you could see she was like respecting the other faiths already from all the way back in issue 2.
Definitely. Well, now and I think a lot of that too was Nebo was always kind of the foil. Like, they were friends, but he was the cynic. He challenged her, and she always stood strong in her beliefs with him. But you can, I think having that character that can sort of provide that other perspective and can say, hey, this is wrong. We should be challenging this. When everyone else is just sort of agreeing, again, he's kind of planting that seed in Alkia's mind, and now it comes full circle when she sees this and she realizes, oh, he was right. This isn't, as black and white as it seemed, and we weren't, this. It wasn't just this, divine will of this creature. No, there were a lot of things at play here. Been a lot of stories to tell, and she's just sort of putting all of those pieces together. And I thought, again, that was a one. I thought the layout that Donny did on that one where Kraylin's sort of literally bleeding out, and his story is kind of bleeding out of him. You see the panels actually kind of in the blood there. That's just a crazy cool layout, and he crushed it.
Oh my god, I didn't even realize that. I'm looking at it right now. That is really such a cool layout.
Yeah, and and again, it gives you this personal, like, he's literally pouring his guts out, with this story and this backstory, and that just really kind of that's a cool visual part. That's something the comics can do really well, is you can get these kind of abstract, cool visuals to tell the point. But then Alkia having that Aquamassa symbol, but also putting the Great Horn symbol right next to it, and showing that she respects his whole life, the part with her and the part that comes before it, and she's not, and but she's also giving up those symbols, that she's not going to let those drive her going forward. Like, they caused him so much pain in his life, and so much damage, and she's respecting that and giving that to him as he goes to rest, but she's shedding it because she's going to move forward without that, which is what he asked her to do. And so she's leaving that behind, and becoming what she wanted, or what he wanted her to become.
And since you did mention Nebo, um, I had this theory that when me and Dan first read the 5th issue here, was Rylan, like, did you purposely have her have orange hair? Because, like, I feel like her and Nebo were, like, the only two, like, main characters that had like orangish hair. So is she like supposed to be like the new Nebo? Like now Alki is sort of Nebo to her.
So I'll be honest, I didn't even realize that they were the only two that had orange hair. That was a decision by Ichsan, but I think that's really cool. And I definitely think that stuff kind of subconsciously, people subconsciously do stuff like that, and I could see Ichsan just kind of doing that as whether it was a conscious decision or not, but just as she was kind of a similar character. So I can't. It definitely wasn't intentional. I'm not gonna say. I wish I could think that deep and put that kind of stuff in there.
Because I didn't go all the way back and like read through again, just because that was just something that I'm like, I feel like I don't remember anybody else with orange hair but Nebo and her.
And it that definitely could be true. Like I said, it wasn't intentional. I can't say that this was that she was that was sort of meant to be the message, but I do think that as far as what she kind of meant to Alkia, she definitely did sort of fill his role, it
Yeah,
was interesting to see, um, like with her character, because in some ways I feel like she really started where Alkia did, where again she's a naive kid, she's kind of like she's looking up,
yes,
she's looking for guidance, she's listening to others, but she's also kind of got to be this foil to Alki again, where she's like, no, what you believe is wrong, or not what you believe
yeah.
is wrong, but she's kind of challenging her on her beliefs and making her see things differently. So it was kind of an interesting like mix of character traits there.
Yeah, some really like really cool characters. Just that whole family just getting introduced in this issue. I was like, this is really cool. Like, so this is her new family. This is her new friend. Really, just you've done an incredible job. Just all the dots, just connecting back to issue two. Like the way it's all gone. It's like you could just keep. I should have reread all of them before I read this, but I was like so excited to read it again. I mean, I've read one, two, and three four times now, three times. So this was really cool,
Well,
and it's like I said, such a satisfying ending.
Well, thank you. One thing I did want to ask, again, like I said, it's been great talking with you guys from the beginning, and it's been cool seeing you guys' thoughts and theories on the characters and what's going to happen and stuff. And I know when we talked about issue 4, you guys talked about some of kind of what you thought might happen in issue 5, some of your theories and stuff like that. And that was a really cool experience. That was something that I'd never had as far as like people thinking about a story I wrote and trying to kind of guess what's going to happen or come up with ideas, because then you kind of get an idea of how other people are perceiving the story and what's going on. So it's cool to hear the connections that you're making and the characters you're noticing, the details you're noticing, and sort of the ideas, and even just with what we talked about earlier as far as what would happen next, where would these characters go next, what else is going on in this world. Like that's, I think, really cool, kind of as a creator, hearing other people have ideas about that and be so invested in the world and the characters. So I really appreciate that. And it's cool to hear, that you guys are noticing some of these things, even some of the stuff that, cause that's the thing about, you work on this so much that you start to not notice some of the little things because you've just, you've done it over and over and over and looked at it over and over and over. And so it's cool to hear kind of a fresh perspective where you guys are like, I noticed this, I saw this. So that's really cool, and it's cool to hear some of those connections you're putting together.
Oh, thank you.
That was yeah. I mean, like I said, we've been with you from the beginning, man, and it's such a cool series, man. And whether you come back for another Kaiju comic or something else, we're there for you, man, because you did an incredible job with this. I have faith in pretty much anything that you're going to put out after this, if you do have any plans for something after this. I mean, you definitely left your footprint in the Kaiju community with this series.
Well, thank you. It was cool, and it was great. Again, just getting to work with all the artists and stuff. I really liked Martha's cover for this one. I mean, like I see, Dan,
Yes.
you have all of hers behind you there, and
Yeah.
it was cool because like the first 3 you got the different kaiju, the 4th one you have Alkia with it, and then the new one, for those that haven't seen it, you have this. It's basically the 3 kaiju, but it's like this totem pole like image, but it's got her crazy cool style and colors and everything, and it just to me felt like such a perfect kind of conclusion to her work on the series, where she got to include all the kaiju. You get this totemic sort of religious type of image, and then it's just got her touch on it, where it's the colors again are insane, the details, the artwork, and so it's been cool to to see that, and to that was all these sort of little things with it, where that was another thing that even though it didn't really have anything to do with the story, because she'd been a part of the team the whole way, and seeing her get to do that and kind of come up with this really cool final image, like it's just been an awesome experience. Seeing all of it come to life, and so it's cool to hear that it's a satisfying ending for you guys too. And you know I hope that everyone that has joined it gets that same kind of satisfaction, and it definitely is encouraging of okay, what else can we do with this, that people are interested, people are invested. Let's see what else we can deliver.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, it was a great run. I mean, you got to work with so many good artists. I think even from the first campaign to now, you had like revolving door of 4 different artists for each issue. This one you got some heavy hitters with Matt Frank. You have Megan Huang, again Martha returning, and Sassman on the who did the was it Sassman who did the
Actually,
last cover?
it was Donny that did the A cover this
Oh, it
time.
was Donny for the last one. Okay.
Because Chris did the issue 4 cover, but then he
Yes.
didn't have any on this one.
Okay.
And that was cool, and it was again, like Chris was there at the start, and he shaped this world. He
Yeah.
designed and drew so many of these characters, and really kind of so much of the world is attributable to him. And I'm very bummed that he wasn't able to finish the series. Donnie did a great job, like it.
Yeah.
Oh no,
And
definitely.
I'm so glad we found him. But it was cool because I've talked to Chris a little bit, since it's over, and and he was excited about it too. So it's cool to see, and I think that's what's one hard thing about this is there is, a comic is a team effort, a group effort. And
Yeah.
and it's hard, especially over the course of however many years. And this is an independent thing. Everybody has their outside stuff going on as well, so
Yeah.
it's hard to keep it together. And I feel fortunate that we were able to keep so much of it together. But I'm also glad that Chris was still excited to be a part of it. Donnie was really excited to come in, and he came in and just fit in so seamlessly. And that's definitely, like, looking back and looking at the team, like when I sent out the final PDF to the team, and said that it was done, like that was one of the coolest experiences I've had, of just like, thank you everyone
Yeah.
for all the work you've done. And now we can all step back and look at it, in its entirety, and know that everyone put in work on the way to get here. So
Yeah. I mean, the team's been great. You've had Ichsan for the beginning, right? For
yep.
colors. Yeah, then Marco Della Verde too, and then Nicole, DeAndrea on
Mm-hmm.
edits, and then yeah, get you bringing in Donnie for issue 4 is when he came in is
Mm-hmm.
just it really was the perfect time because like you said the new tribe introduced like his art and a lot of times sometimes when there's changes in comics, especially ongoing ones, like you need like an issue or two to like get used to that transition to a new artist. But his style was like a flawless transition from Chris. Like it was just not too different, but different enough with these new characters that it was just like the perfect time, and it it came out great, man. I mean, it's so cool to see one of these like indie series completed. I mean, we back a ton of different series, and this is I think the first one that we've seen completed. I mean, Monster Matador, he's just still ongoing, but he's got a bunch of completed arcs, which is really cool.
Yeah.
But this is it like for now, like so it's really cool to just and also bittersweet too to see it over. But
Yeah.
it was a really damn good series. I can't wait to get the physical copies of it now. I know that's a whole nother process, but
Yes.
I'm sure you're chipping away at that now.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not gonna ask you for timelines, but I'm sure it's gonna be a little.
Yeah,
I know
hopefully,
printing it.
hopefully not too long. We do have all the files
Yeah.
over to the printer, and it's Comic Impressions, who we've worked with before. They do a great job. We were talking, I think, before the show, like the quality of their books and everything is like
Yeah.
they're super satisfying to feel. They feel very high quality. So we'll
Yeah.
be using them again. And so yeah, they're like I've got full faith in them. They've delivered 4 issues and done a great job. So I
Yeah.
think here in the relatively near future, as long and just handling all the back end stuff. But yeah, it'll be great. And then really the only thing after that is there will be a trade campaign
Ooh.
this summer. So
Nice.
yeah, which will
Nice.
be really cool. I've already got a cover for that, a new one from a
Ooh.
really cool artist who I was hoping to get on the series and wasn't able to do it, but was able to now for the trade. And so I'm not gonna spoil it yet, but I'm
Ooh.
very very excited to show you guys that when it comes out. And it'll be and it's so great. I can't wait to hold all 5 issues in my hand and to thumb through them. But then I
Yes.
think that trade will be kind of that's such a good complete thing, and just being able to look at it and know it's all right there in the one book. So that'll be cool too. But and it'll be nice just to be able to put that out in the format for people to kind of wait for trades and stuff too.
Yeah.
Hopefully, get it out to some more people who haven't got to experience it yet. But I think this campaign was definitely the best one, just because we knew, okay, now we're getting to finish it. We're getting to tell the whole story, and we got to do that. And and it's all thanks to supporters, backers like you guys, and especially people like you guys who have done a lot to help promote it and talk about it and get the word out. Because definitely over this journey, like, it's been really fun as a writer and as a creator, but also learning how to actually make something, which is a whole different issue than having an idea for something, but actually being able to
Yeah.
get it out there. And that doesn't happen without a whole community of people. And the indie comics community, the Kickstarter community is really supportive, the Kaiju community is really supportive. But definitely shout out to guys like you who help spread the word and get it out there. So
Thank you. We appreciate that, man. And like I said earlier, like you said, just the process of learning how to make a comic had to be something like I had no clue. I'm like, I always have ideas, but I'm like, I don't even know how I would begin. And just like I said, seeing that script and the way it's drawn, I'm like, that's really cool. Like a cool way to see the process. And now I mean, we're ways up, but for the trade paperback, are you gonna have like any extras in there? I guess you'd have like all the covers in the back and stuff, probably.
yeah, so yeah, we'll have like a cover gallery. We'll have some more kind of behind the scenes type stuff. Like I said, we'll have the new cover. I am I do want to do something else for it, just especially for the people who have been there from the jump. And I have a kind of an idea. I've got a couple ideas of some extras I want to do. I don't know for sure what it's going to be yet, but I'll definitely it'll definitely have some cool extra stuff in there. I don't know if it'll be like a mini story or just some cool artwork and kind of character designs, cool like commissions of the characters, stuff like that. But we'll definitely want to make sure that it'll have stuff for fans who have been there since the beginning, have got all the floppies, that they'll be able to get some new stuff out of the trade as well.
Yeah, I mean, this one I went with all the covers. I went with the tier that had all the covers because this was one of the hardest ones for me to pick a cover. I'm like, I can't pick a cover. I'm like, they're all so good. This was like top tier covers. I mean, all of the campaigns have been pretty difficult to pick a cover for. I mean, I love the Mars covers, but then there's a couple where I'm like, oh, I really like that one though too. So
Yeah.
I got like the two like Godzilla inspired ones. I know Tanner did
Mm-hmm.
one. I forgot who did the first
And
one.
then it was
With
I think Leonio Moore and Flops did sort of the uh,
oh yes, yes,
Marvel tribute.
that's the one that yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Just so many
Yeah.
cool covers from the
Yeah,
series.
really. I always like the I didn't get it because I stuck with the Martha ones, except for the last one I got all four as well. But I always like the anime one.
Yes.
I think that was on issue
Yeah.
two.
Mhm.
That one always looks super cool. I was like,
Definitely. Yeah, that was
so
that was
torn.
definitely a cool one. And that was one of the fun things about this was just getting to be a fan of, a fan of manga, a fan of anime, a fan of Godzilla, and all the things that helped inspire me to do this, that helped inspire this story. Trying to think of ways to sort of pay tribute, or at least kind of give a nod to, and the covers, and then also just all the artists that I'm a fan of, and
Yeah.
so that was, that's how I've always looked at the covers. Is this is just as a fan, what do I want to see? What would be cool? And who do I want to
Yeah,
see drive? What would be a cool idea that I would want to see? And so that was fun because it was kind of stepping back from that, like, kind of where I'm going through every detail and all this. Because really, I think for the tribute covers, obviously I had an idea there of what I wanted, but for, I would say, all of the other covers, it was more of like a, hey, you draw cool stuff, and this is kind of what we're going for. Go at it, and just so not really having a lot of direction, and just seeing these artists come
Yeah.
up with their ideas, their cool takes on it was awesome.
Yeah, and then plus the cool part is you get to meet all these artists too,
Mm-hmm.
and speak with them. I mean, that's one of the cool things about the indie community is you get to meet so many people. And you did we brought up Monster Matador. You had the collab with them, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yep, there'll be a
that
print going out with when this is shipped with everyone who
that's a really cool
backed
print.
both campaigns. So which, yeah, and that one was super cool because, again, yeah, a huge fan of his of Stephen Prince's work, and his Monster Matador series, and he is a machine. He is amazing. Like, the way
Oh
he
yeah,
pumps out just high quality stuff, and it's consistent, and it's he's awesome. But also,
I
just that's such a cool character, and so getting to
yeah,
see
oh yeah,
the two characters together with the Great Horn and the Matador, I'm really excited to see that one in person.
yeah. That was I was like, oh man, this is so cool. I'm so happy they're doing this. It is a great collaboration, and like you said, he does an incredible job.
Yeah.
yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, that trade paperback question was like gonna be like that was like my big question. I'm so happy that like we're getting that finally.
Yes. Yeah.
Uh,
That was always kind of the goal. But I wanted to do it kind of, I wanted to do a campaign for each issue. That way, people who just want the issues could just, do
Yeah,
that. But also, that way we can make sure we finished it. And then with the trade, we can really, look at it as we have everything done. Now we can make this, how we want to make it as good as possible. And so that'll be the goal. And so still got some details to work out, but the nice thing, like, it is funny looking at it now, it's like we don't have 20, 30 pages of art to work on and edit and look at and all this. So it
yeah,
seems a lot
it,
easier, but I've
yeah,
also never made a trade, so it's going to be a big learning
yeah,
curve on how to do that too. So
yeah.
yeah, no, that's the big
Now, which
figuring out like the page layout and all that
yeah,
yeah.
stuff and printers and
Yes.
all that stuff. Yeah,
yeah, I was
it's
gonna say, do you use the do you will you use the same company? Do they do trade
They
paperbacks?
do. They do them. So I haven't looked into this too much yet because I've been really just
Okay,
focusing on getting this fifth issue done and out. Um, so that's definitely where I'm gonna start, just because, again, they've done great work, and
yeah,
I know them, I trust them. But yeah, it'll be, I'll talk to some people who have put out some stuff, like, Stevens put out a collected edition.
yes,
There's like a Stomped anthology collected edition. So I'll talk to, and that's, again, the great thing about the community is when you're doing something that you haven't done before, that you're not sure of, there's almost always somebody that has done it and is willing to help you out. So be reaching out
yeah,
to some people, and yeah, and also, definitely one thing, I open it up to you guys, I open it up to anyone else. If there is something that you think, hey, this would be really cool in the trade, this would be a cool sort of touch or a cool bonus or extra to add, like, always open, tried to be very open through this whole process of, here's what I think is cool, here's what I want to make, but what else, what do other people want to see? And
yeah,
definitely got some cool ideas there, definitely been able to make some cool stuff, just by listening to other people as well. So I think that'll be cool, kind of hearing, as I start to get feedback for this issue, but then also once we start working on the trade, hearing ideas for that too.
Yeah, I mean, there's always so many different things you could do with trades. I mean, yeah, I mean, I'm sure you already have, like you said, you already have some ideas, so we'll see, I guess. So do you have any other plans after Territory? Do you have any other series in mind? I know you've mentioned in the past that you have thought of other ideas for things.
Yeah, actually, I've actually been working on something in the background too. Once the art was kind of starting to wrap up for Territory, been working on the background. So I do have a new project. I'm work so, and it's actually the script for the first issue's done. Got an editor on board. And we're going to be looking to this. The goal is we're going to be looking to pitch it to some publishers first, but with the
Oh,
sort of
nice.
backup plan of Kickstarter. Just because I haven't done, haven't really worked with publishers before, so just kind of want to, step into that world and see what that's like. But so just a little brief summary of what it's going to be. The story is going to be called Garbage Lords. There's no kaiju, unfortunately, but it is it's a dystopic, kind of an eco dystopic um, near future where basically the Great Pacific Garbage Patch has kind of become this sanctuary where a lot of countries have started to exile the people they can no longer take care of, and then it's basically this anarchic place where it's kind of just run by gangs, and the Garbage Lords is one of the gangs, and it follows a couple of the characters who are in the gang as they're kind of trying to survive. So it's cool, and it's been Territory was great, but I definitely learned a lot of lessons, and so I feel like going into this next one, I feel a lot more confident and feel like I have a good idea of some of the lessons I can take from Territory and apply to it. So hopefully, we'll be able to get things moving on that soon, and hopefully, I'll have some exciting news for you guys on that front too.
Oh,
That
nice.
sounds like a really cool concept, man. I really dig that.
Well, thank you.
Definitely would be up for reading that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, have you been reading any other comics lately? Do you read a lot of comics
Um,
yourself?
I kind of it's kind of like a roller coaster. Like there'll be periods where I read
Yeah,
a lot, and then there's periods where I
I
don't
know.
don't read as much. I haven't really been keeping up with a lot of the like kind of more mainstream like the Marvel or DC or even like
No,
Image or
yeah.
anything like that. I did see there's some really cool looking new Godzilla ones coming out. There's one by Chris Saminska or something. I'm not exactly
Oh
sure how to
yeah.
say his name, but
Yes, Sismetcha.
yeah, and
Yes.
his art style is awesome, and that Godzilla series looks really cool.
Yeah, yeah,
But otherwise, it's honestly mostly been Kickstarter stuff. So
yeah.
definitely, like Steven's stuff, the Monster Matador stuff. Always love reading that. And then just kind of a variety of other things. Ryland Grant came out with something a little bit ago. There was another kind of Toku one called Kaiju Blues. And
Yep,
then
yeah.
just honestly kind of it's like just looking through my back campaigns. It's kind of a mishmash of
Oh
stuff. I'm like,
yeah.
oh, that looks cool. But I definitely, even when I'm not reading, um, like a lot of books from the store, I do try to stay in touch and back some Kickstarter campaigns. Just this community is really good, and they've helped me a lot. So try to give back, and again, I just I feel like the originality on Kickstarter is awesome because it's all passion
Yeah.
projects, and so whenever you get something, you can see the work that was put into it, which is really cool.
Yeah, the Violent Grant one, is that the Breach?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
I backed that one too. I haven't got to read it yet though.
Yeah, I did read it. I liked it a lot. Like he's a good, like I haven't read a lot of other stuff by, and I don't think I've actually read any of his other stuff, but I know that he's written a bunch of other ones and definitely want to check him out because this one's cool.
Yeah, Steven was the one that he was like, oh, he's like, you should check out that series from Riley coming out. I was like, all right, I'll check that out then.
Yeah.
Yeah, then like we did cover Kaiju Blues, which should be coming soon on one of
I
our
think.
Wednesday
Well, it can
shows.
go up next week.
It could go on.
It's I edited it, but it's just then like so
It's cool. And then
Well, he's having the next
oh,
campaign.
that
I think it's next month for the Dynamite.
Dino Knights,
Oh,
yeah.
Dino
nice.
Knights, yes.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw that from him, but that looks really cool
I'll
too.
have to check that one out.
Yeah, it looks like it's like they're like time traveling dinosaur knights.
Okay. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, it's like Ninja Turtles with dinosaurs where they travel through time. It looks really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that was. It's. I think it was like on the back of both issues of
Oh yeah,
Kaiju Blues, and
Yeah.
I was like, oh man,
Okay.
I gotta.
yeah,
When it comes out, I gotta watch it.
yeah, yeah. It's even got like a theme song and everything. Yeah, I think that's launching really soon. But yeah, the indie scene is just so cool, man. It's dangerous too. I'm just like, and I don't know if you follow, like, you have the ability to follow Kickstarter creators like Steven. He's like every day it's like, oh, he backed this, he backed that. I'm like, what's he getting?
Yeah. But I mean,
Yeah,
I have so much respect for that guy. Like he's been,
yeah,
and and it was cool because I got to talk to him. We did the collab, but also just kind of talked about the books and the process and everything. He's definitely someone that, I've learned a lot from. He's always been very open to, any questions or anything like that. And I think that's what is great, really great about this is, like you said, when you come up with an idea, you're like, that sounds cool. I have absolutely no idea how to make it or what to do.
yeah,
People like him, and there's a lot of them in this community are so willing to answer questions, help you out, and stuff like that, and they make it feel possible, which at the start it doesn't. At the start it just feels like there's no way I can get all this done. But once you start talking to some people, you're like, okay, I see, I can, I see how they did it, and I see I can do it too. It's not easy, it takes the work, but it's possible. And that's, as long as you can, as long as it's possible, as long as you have a chance to do it, you can make it happen, which is awesome.
yeah. I mean, how do you feel now that it's done? Like,
You said bittersweet earlier, and that's definitely kind of the
yeah,
first word that comes to mind. And and that's what's so crazy too is it's been like 4 or 5 years working on this and building, and working, not only working with the characters and building the world, which is really cool, and you kind of live in your head and you get to do all this, but also working with the team and like getting new pages from Donny or Chris and or seeing Ichsan, the way he's colored something, or talking to Nicole about how to change this, or Marco. Like I just learned again, you look at stuff to the point where you sometimes don't even notice it, and then you learn it later. Like with Marco, I saw later, or in this last issue, like he does so much as far as like the way he breaks up the word balloons and bolds some of the words and stuff. Like that's not in the script. That's him being an amazing, incredible letterer. And it's so natural that even I, who wrote it, had no idea, he was really doing it until I went back and I was like, wow, yeah, like he and it's again, so you see these little details and you learn something, and
yeah,
it's so exciting. And so I'll definitely miss that part, but at the same time, being able to step back and say, there it is, there's the story, it's done, it's definitely gratifying, and also it's inspiring of like, okay, I made one, now I want to make another. I've told one story, what other stories do I have to tell?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
now I know I can do it, so how can what's the next one, how do we get started, what do we need to start going?
That's yeah. Well, that's really cool. You got some confidence in you, and like you said, like Marco does do a fantastic job with the lettering. I mean, letterers are like very unsung heroes of comic books.
Absolutely,
Honestly,
yeah.
they often do like just not get the recognition that they deserve because they do a fantastic job. Because I have seen some comics where the lettering is not great. So
Well, and I think,
it is a good talent.
yeah,
Yeah, I feel like if you're a good letterer, no one's gonna notice that you did a good job
exactly.
Yeah,
because they'll notice when you do a
Right.
bad
It's
job.
Yes.
almost the curse of the
it's
job.
exactly
Is
it. Yes.
Yeah, like if you're doing it well, it looks natural and people don't notice it because they're just like, yeah, this is how it should look. Like, but yeah, but
Yeah.
if it starts to look weird or something, then that's when people point out. So yeah,
Yeah.
and that again, something that I didn't know a lot about, but talking to him, and he's just like, oh yeah, I just do this here, I just do this here. I'm like, none of this would have ever crossed my mind. And so and
Yeah.
so even just getting to work with people who are a really good at their job, and b passionate and have done this for a long time, and you get an appreciation for sort of the craft of making it. There's like there's all the cool creative stuff, but there's also just a lot of sort of craft and subtle
Yeah.
things that go into it that really make a big difference. That you like if you just buy a comic from the shelf, you won't notice it, you won't think about it. But there's a lot of things that went into it on that back end that somebody was having to think, was really putting their touch on it, and that's why it came out that way.
Yeah. Yeah, they are really master works of art.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's been a while, right? I'm super excited about the trade paperback. Is there anything else that you want to throw in at the end, like any messages or anything like that?
I think the only thing is I am doing a couple Comic Cons this year. This is the first time I've really done that. So I'll be at the Denver
Oh,
Fan
nice.
Expo, which is sort of the big one here in Colorado. That's in July. And then Fort
Nice.
Collins Comic Con, which will be in August. I live up in northern Colorado.
Oh,
So
nice.
yeah, so I'll be at both of those, which will be really exciting. Looking forward to meeting some people, meeting some other creators, getting to talk to people who are interested in the book, and yeah, and it'll be cool to just kind of get territory out to that audience as well. Kickstarter has its audience, but Comic Cons is, from
Yeah.
what I've heard, a whole different kind of audience
Oh,
experience.
yeah.
So I'm excited to get it out there. So
Yeah, that's really cool.
yeah,
Then, then you could even drag them, like show them your new campaign too. Like, you get them to follow you on Kickstarter and everything. Really cool.
yeah,
That's a good way to spread the word, man. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we're going to Kaiju Brooklyn in a couple of weeks,
nice,
so it's always fun going to the conventions, man.
yes,
It's a good time. It's a good vibe. Just meeting all the people there,
yeah.
and I think you'll have a fun time doing these cons, man. It'll definitely be a good time for you
Thank you. Yeah.
and get exposure.
Yes. Yeah. Any little bit helps there, so I'm excited.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. No.
yeah, I think we're good, right? I think we're just about wrapped up here, and we thank you so much for the series, man, and for coming on, and you've done such a great job. And like I said earlier, you really have left a big footprint in the kaiju community with this series.
Well, thank you. Like I said, I wouldn't be able to do it without all the support. So I appreciate you guys. It's been awesome talking to you. It's been fun getting to know you guys and hear your thoughts on the series. And yeah, I'm excited to kind of see what happens next. And I always appreciate all the cool kaiju stuff you guys put out. It's always fun to see what's out there because you guys are dialed in, man. So
We try to keep on top of it. We try. I mean, I said life is crazy,
it
man.
is.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. All right. Well, thank you, and thank everyone for watching. If you guys made it to the end.